things you want to refer to. It's just good to be able to look back on that later. Things you won't be taking home today, but will be coming home soon, is the Program of Studies and Student Handbook. Those will be coming in the mail to you sometime in the next month, hopefully. We're trying right now to blend our handbook into being one 7-12 handbook rather than a middle school handbook and a high school handbook separately. And then the Program of Studies we just update each year, and we're on it, right? Soonish, right? And then the other one is your jump rope login. So jump rope, you're like, I'm not jumping rope. So jump rope is our online portal for looking at your students' grades and performances, and that is going to come via email to you in the next, hopefully, week or so, once we have that system up and running for parents to access. What we've been hearing from the people at Jump Rope is just that if there isn't much data in the portal, it doesn't make a lot of sense to a parent. Like you're looking at it going, I don't really know what I'm looking at here because there's nothing there, right? And it's unlike for those of you who are returning students, parents, in grade length, there is a system where you might see upcoming assignments. It does have that, but it's not super useful to look at for a little while. So we'll get populated with some stuff, and then we'll have a chance for you to look at it with the login. All right? So those are two things that will come later, but for tonight, that's what you're supposed to have before we go home. Just want to let you know a little bit about our hope here. So we're hoping to give you a ton of information, but also pause for questions along the way. And our hope is to get you out of here by 8 o'clock. If you need to go earlier, that's totally fine. Please don't feel like you're offending us if you have to get on to another event or home to your families or whatever at any time. We're also filming it, this event tonight, so not on you all, but on us. So the idea being that hopefully, if we do everything right, it'll be able to go live on our website, and then you can just watch it if you couldn't have made it tonight, right? So again, just to reiterate, please do ask us questions during. Don't feel like you have to hold your question to the very end. The one exception will be like if your question is like, for my particular child, I had this one thing I wanted about my kid. Like that probably we can wait till the end and talk about. All right? And just to take a moment to do some staff introductions, and then we'll also do some parent introductions, because part of our hope for this is for you all to be able to connect to one another and know, oh, that's who that person's parent is, and if I want them to go over to that person's house, I've at least met them before, right? Because unlike in a little community school where everyone's come up together through the years, you're all coming new to this from lots of different towns and lots of different communities. But so we'll start with staff, and throw Wendy over here, and then I'll go over to the staff who are covered in back, but feel like they can sit down.
I'm Wendy Spector. I just joined TSA in May as the communications coordinator, and my biggest job is probably getting the newsletter out every week, and you'll also be getting messages from me, and I also populate Facebook and take pictures of the kids and you guys, along with Amber and Dave.
Amber in the back, wearing two hats tonight, right?
Yeah, so I'm Amber. I'm the Director of Enrollment and Communications. This is probably about the 10th time I've been to this parent night, but this is my first time as a parent here as for a middle schooler, so that's kind of interesting. My office is up at the high school, but I do work at both the middle school and the high school.
And Rob,
I'm a parent.
he is a parent and also a volunteer who is helping us this year by doing what?
It's not volunteer.
Okay. What are you serving as?
I'm a parent of Ella and Baron Stain. I also happen to be coaching the middle school soccer club.
We're really grateful to Rob for coaching, to Claire and the people back.
I'm Claire, and I teach science, and then also the afternoon class called Study All, which you'll hear about a little more later.
I'm Amos. I'm teaching Spanish and running the after-school program.
I'm Dave, and I work with Amber and Wendy, and I'm part of the communications team. I also do fundraising here, and I wear a bunch of different hats, but I also coordinate all volunteer activities, all my relations,
Hello, I'm Mary Stoddard. This is I guess really my first official year. I came in part-time in January last year, and I served as a support staff, and I co-teach English with Marcy, and I'm coordinating activities.
I'm Fallon Abel. I teach social studies, and then in the afternoon I teach the ESP class, which stands for Emotional, Social, Marcy Ennis, and I teach language arts, and in the afternoon I teach engineering. In the afternoon I teach arts.
And maybe if, oh, sorry, Tracy.
I'm Tracy Gillespie and I teach algebra.
All right. And then if we can just go around parents and you can just say your name and maybe the student you're connected to and the town you live in. That might be useful for all the other parents to learn who you are. John, you can take it away.
Hi, I'm John Lloyd from Stratford, and I'm Jack's dad, who's an 8th grader.
I'm Jack's mom, Lori. I'm Rachel Lentz, also from Stratford, and I'm Levi's mom.
Levi's dad.
I'm Dawn, I'm from Sharon, and my son is Jared's here. I'm Cindy, my daughter is Sophia, and she's in 8th grade from Hartland.
I'm Dave.
I'm Jenna from South Worlds and
I'm Heather, and I'm Sugar's mom, and we live in Oxford.
Oh, Ruby! You're waiting on the other one.
And Ruby's mom. There's the kid who's in the middle school this year.
I'm Andre, I'm with her.
I'm Sylvia Moore, I'm Maple's mom from Sharon.
I'm Jen Stainton. I'm Ella and Farron's mom from Sharon.
I'm still Ellen
I'm Denise Chapin. I'm Diana's mom and we live in Hancock.
And I'm Ross. I'm
I'm Barbara Brown, I live in Sharon, and my daughter is in 8th grade, and her name is Sabrina.
And I forgot to mention in my introduction, I'm also a TSA parent. My daughter graduated from middle school last year, no, 3 years ago. She's now a sophomore, and my son is graduating from high school. I have a problem.
I'm Shalina. I'm Shalina, I'm Maya's mom, 8th grader, and from Stockbridge.
You can go ahead and help. I'm Dave. So
Maya. And Kristen, her sister.
Alright. And I'm Glenn Wiley. I belong to Amber and Justin.
So please just know that our hope is that you all, at the end of this, can connect or have conversations if you need to. You'll certainly meet each other, whether it's on the side of the soccer field or at the ski area or all sorts of places throughout the year, but we just want to make sure that you all have a chance to connect because we feel like, again, that it's really important for parents to know what's going on in the school and also with their kids socially and outside of school, right? So just make that as connections. So I just want to start always thinking about the mission statement of the Sharon Academy. We spend a lot of time talking about our mission and being a mission-driven institution. And I'm not going to read the whole mission to you, but I want you to notice that there's a few words here that I've highlighted in a different color. And those are the ones that, for me, really call out what it means to be in the middle school. What's the point of our middle school? Right? And one of those, of course, is the idea of nurturing and supporting students and giving them a safe space, giving them a place where they can feel like they can explore things, they can try out new behaviors, they can try out new personalities, they can try out maybe even daily, right? They can try out new interactions, new sports, new activities, right? And then the next piece being our small school community. So we're almost the biggest we've been in a couple of years, but we are certainly a very small school, and it's intentionally that way, right? So we have only ever been as big as 45, and I think in all of you that have been here, the smallest we were was 30. And the idea behind that is intentional. The whole design of our curriculum, the design of our classrooms is designed around that smallness, right? As you all, and hopefully that's what drew you in here to make this choice to be here as a family. And then the last piece is just the idea of immense potential. So for us, we know that students, all students, have the potential to do tremendous work and to make big growth, right? And so we want to help them enter into that sort of, to use an educational jargon, zone of proximal growth. We want to think about how to really push them to the level, not that so far that they are lost, but not that it's a place where they just feel like they can kind of be comfortable. We want to get that sort of like uncomfortable growing edge. And so those are all important parts of what it means to be here in the middle school, what we're trying to accomplish. And if you're ever thinking like, how are they doing? I would ask you to measure us up against this mission and particularly those words. Any questions or thoughts on that? Anything you observed or noticed or wonder about? All right. So moving on, we have our communications team that's going to talk a little bit about communications, right? Since that's what they're here for.
So as I said earlier, I'm Amber, and thank you all for coming tonight. And our team is myself, Dave, and Wendy. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the ways that you can stay in touch with us. Our website, we've got a brand new website that we're really excited about, sharonacademy.org. And on that website, you can easily find family resources. So if you follow these instructions and click on the family resources button, that's where a lot of links and documents that you need on a daily basis, you'll find them all collected there. Also, we send out an email newsletter every week, and that, as Wendy was saying, is what Wendy writes every week. That if you're not receiving that, and you just let us know and we'll find out what's happening. But it has essential information for you every week. What's happening, upcoming opportunities, summaries of what's been happening for the past week or two, and calendar events as well. So check that out every week. We also archive it now on our website, thanks to Wendy, who has found a way to archive it on our website. We have a submission form, so if you have an item you would like to submit to the newsletter, you're welcome to do so. And you can follow this link here, and that'll take you to a form that you populate with your information, and it automatically goes to Wendy, and she can include it in the newsletter. If you have trouble with that for any reason, you can email newsletter@sharonacademy.net.
What do people want to put on in the newsletter?
That's a good question. So, if you happen to know of a community event, I promise I didn't plan it. If you know of a community event coming up that you think our students would be interested in, if you have a community service opportunity, as you know, students here have to complete 20 hours of community service every year. So if you have a community service opportunity that you'd like to let the community know about, you can put that in. If you have a house or apartment for rent or for sale, you can submit that too. We are always having families wanting to move into the area or into sending towns. So that's the sort of example. Wendy, would you like to add anything?
The only thing I would add is that the email, the newsletter will come out every Friday. Probably you'll have it in the morning when you wake up. And it's very long, and hopefully it'll be interesting enough that you'll actually slog your way through it. Because as Amber said, there's a lot of important information in there. It will contain a lot of the information that you'll be getting in separate emails as well. So it'll be a summary of some of those important emails that we'll be sending out ad hoc.
The newsletter is separated into different sections so that you can find the information you need easily and quickly. For example, there's always a middle school section. So for you as parents, you can go directly to that. There's always a calendar section to let you know of upcoming TSA events, and a community service section if we have submissions or ideas of community service opportunities for students. So you can hit the main sections and then also skim other sections to see if there's information there. Does that make sense? Okay, does anybody have any questions? Sure.
My question is, my challenge is always the calendar. And so I'm just wondering if our plan, I know there's a calendar now, but so for example, I'm professionally new. So I would like to know what time to be someplace. And so, for example, the end of soccer practice is here. So I'd like to put my calendar, the school calendar, as a way to make sure I have all that information. So I'm just wondering, for example, for this month, will it be populated with middle school activities, games, soccer practices, and that sort of stuff?
So that's a really good question. I think there are many items that are on the school calendar, and I think the three of us will take that back and check and make sure that that is happening. Is that work?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
I think the soccer game just came out today, just so you know. So that definitely isn't on the calendar yet.
Yeah.
We've had some technical difficulties.
With the athletic
So
calendar.
maybe next week before we can get out to work with that.
So will it all be in one one place, or will I go to the athletic calendar for athletic events and then another calendar for non-athletic?
At the moment, there's TSA events and an athletic calendar. So yes, there are two different places for those different things at the moment. Any other questions? Okay, oh, sorry. This is mainly a reference slide for you with lots of information of places to go to find information that you need. I do want to highlight a couple of things. We do have a Facebook page, and we try to post pictures of students doing fun things and their daily activities, both the high school and the middle school, as often as we can. Wendy is on it with that and putting on lots of great photographs and information about the school. So check it out because it's fun. You get to sort of see what your kids are doing. For example, we just had a whole bunch of photos from orientation days. You can see the sorts of team building activities the middle school students were doing.
One thing that's not listed up there is an athletics booster club, Sharon Academy Facebook page as well, which you can get at through that Facebook page.
Another thing to point out is if you need to email us, there's an easy way to remember how to reach us. It's our first letter, last name at Sharon Academy. There are two exceptions. Carl Grappi is our technology guru at the Sharon Academy, and he also has a son, Carl Jr. So the two emails are different, and if you want to reach the student, it's C. Grappi. If you want to reach the IT specialist, it's Carl Grappi. And we have an alum who is working for us now, and his email is Cam Pattison instead of C. Pattison. But generally speaking, this is the way to email us. And just a reminder, there are lots of field trips coming up. If you haven't completed your emergency contact information form, please do so as soon as possible. The students can't go on field trips without that emergency contact information completed.
And that's the one that's gone on in case people are confused about which thing is which, right? The constant contact is sent to you.
Yeah. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry to have to ask. So if we can't remember if you did the emergency contact survey,
Email me and I'll find out.
okay,
Just drop me a quick email and I'll check.
okay, thanks. No worries.
So this is another sort of reference slide. If you need to contact TSA, Cynthia and Catherine are your main contacts, your first point of entry, so to speak. They are also great references. If you don't know who to ask a question, if you've got a question and you don't know who to talk to about it, you can call one of them and they can help you figure out who you need to talk to. Andrew will talk a little bit later about the advisors and how the advisory program works at the middle school. And just here for reference, Andrew's the director of the middle school, Michael Livingston's the head of school. And now, Dave is going to talk about volunteering.
So I mentioned that I'm the volunteer coordinator. I actually got that job because I volunteered as a parent. And I learned quickly that this school was built on volunteerism, literally. Like parts of the building at the high school were built by volunteers, painted by volunteers. We rely heavily on our volunteers. And it's a fun way to get to know each other, to build our community, to have your involvement with the place that your kids are spending their days is just a wonderful gift. And I try to get word out about all types of different activities that are coming up, whether it be the middle school circus or actually I'm going to put a date up on the board. We've got up at the high school. And by the way, when I say volunteer for the school, it's not just the middle school, it's the whole school. It's the high school as well. And that gathering of both the high school and middle school parents is a really nice opportunity. So on September 15th, we're having an old-fashioned post and beam barn raising. And this structure is going up by the shed where we, well, Rob and his crew, before he disappeared, sugar for us. We have a sugaring operation, and that's in a little bit of flux right now, but it will be up and running again soon. And we also have a, as Heather knows, a wood-fired stone oven for baking pizzas that we sell for each of the varsity homes. And that's a really fun way to get to know each other. With making pizzas, Heather and I were there yesterday making pizzas, sweating, trying not to sweat on the pizzas. But it's fun, isn't it?
It is fun.
Yeah. And Heather's been doing it a while now, and it's just a great way to get to know the community, get to know each other. And so I ask you to please pitch in. It's fun. It's a fun way to meet new people, and you'll get the appeals out on a fairly regular basis. So keep your eyes out. Thank you. By the way, as an introduction to some of the volunteer opportunities, we're always looking for different skill sets as well. So I'm going to hand these out. There's one on the table out there. But some of the upcoming opportunities, but also some of the skill sets that we can really use around the school. Really be helpful. So,
So I'd like to bring us back to the middle school and talk about some academics and how we support your students, and our students, all of our students and their children. So we have many ways that we reach out and support the students at the middle school. Okay, so first of all, we have small group support. There are some pull-out programs for extra support. We have individualized support when students need support. There's I'm down here. That's me. I take care of some of the extra support, so does Pam Ward. And just to jump ahead a little bit, I support in the language arts classroom with Marcy, and Pam is supporting in science and social studies. So she goes back and forth depending on the need of the class. We also have lunch support. We had one of the students come in early today to work with Fallon because he didn't understand his homework. And he didn't make an appointment or anything, but it all just worked out. So there are so many opportunities to get individual support for it. It's really wonderful. And coming from a public school, I'm a retired New York State public school teacher, and there's such wonderful support here and caring, and the students, I think, feel very comfortable, and I hope if your student doesn't, please encourage them to feel comfortable asking for help and support, because that's what we do here. And the students help us as well. So it's really a great situation. In addition to that, there's the after-school homework support, and Amos, who you met before, runs that. So he's here after school. Great support time to get homework help done, or any kind of academic support, or just relax and read. We also have a school counselor from the high school who is Heather Toms, who's filling in this year, and she will be spending some time here visiting some of our students and who need to see her. But anyone, I think, could contact you or me, and if you feel that your child needs to speak to a counselor, that's also possible.
And she may be speaking with students just
anyway,
on the fly, not because they need support, but just as a way of kind of getting to know kids and making connections, right? Not necessarily because it's something that you are reaching out.
Right, but it could be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And then Kay Kardashian is the Director of Academic Services at the high school, so she's also in charge of the IEPs, the Special Education Services, as a lot of middle school, and mostly Kate will be, I believe, at the high school. I think she might be down here a little bit, but I communicate with head meetings periodically. So we're going to be fine. I also wanted to point out that we have a class called Study Hall for 7th graders, instead of Study Hall, which you guys probably have in union school. Study Hall for 7th graders is sometimes the time to do homework when they have a lot of work to do, but it's also a time for organization. How do you study? How do you get your homework done? Those types of things, like executive functioning, organizational skills.
school dances are a really big thing. We have 4 of them per year, 3. So we have fall, winter, and spring, and then we have the semi-formal in May. So that week before the dance, that's the girls do that. The rest of them are here in the school in the basement. And we usually have 1 teacher and 3 parents chaperoning that dance. So they usually run from 6:30 to 9, and they're a lot of fun.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
answer.
And we need to have the chaperones in order to have the dances.
Right.
So that's very important.
So we have to like really say that we're not gonna have a dance unless you ask your parents to be chaperone, and they don't wanna ask you because it's not cool to have your parent there, so.
Lori, right? Chaplain semi-formal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's
John,
really
you
fun.
chaperone? Right?
Yeah.
You
It
guys
was really late, but it was really fun.
Right. Boogie down.
You get to see your kid in a whole different way. Yeah, very fun, yeah.
Sometimes
Okay,
a lot of-
good.
Are you doing this?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Alright.
Yes. Okay, so here we have how we can eat at the middle school. So most people bring their lunch, but we do have microwave and refrigerator. The refrigerator downstairs, then we have several microwaves. So if you want to bring a, I don't know, this time you could eat microwave those soups or something. We do have food here that's down in our basement cafeteria, general room down there. And here are some of the prices. So you can see peanut butter sandwich, cheese sticks, apples, popcorn yogurt, and then every Friday we have pizza with salad. So downstairs is a clipboard with a piece of paper on it, and the student just signs in and they circle what they think. And then you guys can go with that. We do have all the whole state does, a free and reduced lunch program, and students have free access to food. If you have not filled out one of those, we really encourage people to fill that out because it makes us eligible for certain grants. So if you think you qualify for that, please fill out the form. No one knows except for yeah. So we would really encourage you to do that. And also, oh yeah, this is very important, students cannot go to the store or after school on their own. I mean, if you bring your student to the store to buy food, that's a different story, but they can't get dropped off and walk to the store. They have to stay here. And please, no sodas or caffeinated beverages. Okay.
Is pizza an option tomorrow, or is it not starting?
Pizza is tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes.
Mary,
They're all
can I
very
just-
excited about pizza.
I just wanted to reiterate something Mary said, which is that there's complete anonymity. If a student does have free and reduced lunch, there's no way for any other student or any other teacher to know whether or not they qualify for free and reduced lunch. The slide just said only the billing person is aware, and that's very much the case. So if you are worried about filling out that paperwork because maybe your student would be identified, just please rest assured that that is not the case.
Yeah, thank you for clearing that up. Thank you.
There are 4 advisors here. Andrew, Fallon, and Claire and I are all advisors, and our role is to help your student if they have any problems at school that they can't resolve on their own, if they want to talk to someone, or if you as parents hear about something that's going on at school that concerns you, or there's something that your child is talking about, you can easily contact us and we can work with you. So I have parents of my 8th grade advisees who contact me by email and let me know what's going on with their students, and usually I can give them some inside information about things that are going on here at school. We're the advisor for 2 years, but if your student feels like we're not a good match for them, it's fine to change. We're not offended at all. You can definitely say, I don't want Marcy to be my advisor anymore. I want Andrew because he's way cooler. So we definitely can change it up if it's not a good match. And we have 2 conferences. So the advisor runs the conference, and the conferences are November and April. So your students and you and the advisor will sit down together to talk about your students' progress, goals. What else? So contact us whenever you need to. Right? Anything else? We have 4 things that happen in the afternoon from 1:15 to 3:15. 4 days a week, every day except for Wednesday. Your student will have 2 hours of each of these classes per week, so art with me and Spanish with Amos, and study all, which is, talk about that, Mary talked about it. Okay, Claire talked about it, right? So it might be a study hall, or they might be learning about something, or getting some structured help there. And then there's ESP, which is emotional, social, and physical wellness with Fallon and or Claire. Fallon. And you wanna talk about what that is?
Yeah, just really briefly, I mean, emotional, social, and physical wellness is some, you could think of it as like PE, but we do a lot more than that. We'll be doing a lot of team building activities, we'll be doing archery, we're gonna do some cooking, some mindfulness exercises, also some tinkering and engineering challenges. So it's about helping kids learn how to navigate social dynamics and putting them in some situations that give them some challenging social dynamics to learn different skills around how to process communication challenges or emotional challenges. And so if you ever have any concerns about that, please feel free to speak to me. Okay. Field trips. We have lots of field trips. We're very field trip heavy this fall because it's our Vermont unit and there's lots of things to do in Vermont. Our first one is coming up next week on Thursday. We're going to be snorkeling in the White River in Rochester, learning about the natural environment. It sounds really fun. And then the week after that, we have 3 days of local field trips. So social studies goes to the Justin Moral Homestead. Science goes to the White River to study crayfish, and my class, language arts, will be doing Andy Goldsworthy-esque type outdoor sculptures over at the high school by the big rock that comes down next to our library.
White Room.
Okay, sorry, the White Room. So we'll be doing those things, and then we have a Mount Cardigan hike. We're going to go see Animal Farm at the Chamber Music Hall. What else are we doing? And then in the spring, we go to Holbert's, and we work on leadership and risk-taking. So that's a big here. So you should have received permission slips. If you haven't received permission slips, they are looking on the table out in the hallway, but we need those like soon because we're going on the 13th. So
like tomorrow.
Please make sure you
Like
get them
now,
filled out.
before you go.
Before you go, please make sure we have all those things so your child can go on these field trips.
Have you got them already? There's, like I said at the beginning, there's a box in the back by the snacks you can drop off your completed permission slip.
Any questions about field trips?
School hours, so it's pretty clear. If we start at 8:15, that's the official start time. At 3:15. The math is for everybody first period, so hopefully they all love coming to math because the brain's warmed up. So try to have them here then. Please do not drop your kids off before 7:30. There's no supervision, and it becomes a liability issue for schools. They say, well, I'm not responsible, we're not responsible, we are. So kids really need to get here after 7:30. And somebody will be here every day at 7:30.
And if that's a challenge for you, please do let me know and we can talk about other places you could put your kid up until 7:30, whether it's the town office that's sometimes open or the elementary school, but we don't want them just like milling it out front in 0 degree temperature, so that doesn't seem good.
Unattended. Someone, that's me, will be here until 5. So they can chill for 20 minutes. Again, they can't leave campus. They're not supposed to go to the store or do whatever the young adolescents do, but they can do what they want around the school grounds at 3:30. We'll locate somewhere. The primary reason is to support them in their academics. They need help. Some kids are taking buses to Rochester or Chelsea or Tunbridge, and that's fine, after soccer or no soccer. And they can stay here and do other activities, play games or anything socially appropriate. We expect that they won't have cell phones to use. Contact them for rides is great, but we don't want kids on devices. They can use Chromebooks for homework, But it's a time that kids can do homework or really just be kids and get some supervision if they need it. If they don't need to be here, they should probably go home if they have a way home. Okay, just in general, we want to make it productive. I don't expect you can help me this next one. Will you be doing that sometimes?
Sometimes.
Only if you were absent, if we need to go to a meeting or whatever, it's just the occasional.
True, I'm not going out for Friday. Okay, so we'll be here. Somebody will be here almost all the time. All right. Any questions about? Yes, go
I
ahead.
do have a question. So on Wednesday now, you're here until 5?
Till 5.
Okay.
So a long stretch, 4 hours. And, that was one of the things we wanted to get a feel for. There's certain kids that are coming every Wednesday who would do something more stimulating and creative. But right now it's kind of catching can, and so we don't know yet what it's going to look like. So it's something we can develop. And when does the ski program is on Wednesdays? So that'll be obviously something. But right now, yeah, 5 o'clock every day. So this is sort of some of this is kind of redundant. But if you're here, you've got to come. I mean, you can't just wander the grounds. So if you're staying after school, I'm responsible for knowing where you are. Teachers can encourage them, the kids to come. We'll talk to you if we think they need some extra help. My contact information, which if you can't get hold of your kid, if you're running late, there's an emergency or something, please let me know. And this is a Rebels course, right?
Well, it's not officially.
But it's the gentleman who's doing it is right. So have you guys heard about this course? I don't know. It was mentioned at the barbecue, the cookout. So that's if kids are interested in that. Who do they?
Mary Newman.
You can come talk to me.
Okay. So it seems like a cool opportunity for kids who want to try to sing on Wednesdays, since it is another release. Any questions about it?
Alright, so homework, yay! To be really clear, the reason we assign homework is one, to really just help kids practice that skill of learning how to manage their time, be responsible for organization. But also we want homework to be this way to practice skills that we're learning in class and to be able to come to class and for us to be able to make the most productive use of our class time. So we're not assigning busy work just to give them homework. We really want that homework to be valuable practice for them in mastering the skills. So we do try to keep homework to an hour and a half a night maximum because we want kids to be healthy and active. So we want them to go out and play sports or be active in outside organizations, to be volunteering, to go to bed at a reasonable hour. So they should be getting about 20-25 minutes max of homework per academic class. So that's social studies, language arts, science, maths, and Spanish. So if your student is kind of spending a significant amount of time, longer than an hour and a half on homework a night, please talk to their advisor, talk to us, because maybe that's a sign that they're struggling with some of these skills and need some more support. And if you feel like they're really not being challenged, like they could do with some more challenge, that's another thing we want to hear. We have a lot of adaptability and a lot of ability to amp our curriculum up or gives kids support. So please stay in touch with us about how the workload at home feels. Another thing to know, students do have homework on weekends. We will avoid pretty much all of the time giving them homework over longer vacations. That way you can travel. When you have a student doing homework, please make sure that they have a quiet, structured space. My favorite thing is when kids are like, it took me 4 hours to do my homework last night. And I was like, how many times did you check your phone during that 4 hours? And they're like, it helped me. But really, especially if they're struggling to get through their homework in a reasonable amount of time, make sure that that environment doesn't have electronics and is a place that they can really focus. All of our homework, well, that's not true. All of our major assessments will come with criteria sheets that clearly explain what's expected of a student and the rubrics that explain what standards and skills we'll be assessing. So on any major assignment you can look and that would not only be given to the student, but that'll be posted on jump rope so you'll be able to see what standards, what skills we're assessing. We are really encouraging and helping students practice the skill of writing their homework down in their assignment notebooks. You'll notice my classroom is always posted in the same place. And I know that's true in the other classes as well. And right now, for the first about month of school, we're pretty structured on that, where I know I'm not letting kids leave my classroom until I visually see that it's been written down in the assignment notebooks. And so as certain kids develop more independence or develop their own, oh, I have my own system, after the first month, if certain kids are showing that they're kind of successful at developing their own system and managing their organization, we give them more independence with that. And if your student's someone who's not managing their own organization, we will keep reinforcing using the assignment notebook. So that's again something to communicate with your advisor about how is that work going in terms of organization. Please don't depend on Jump Rope. Jump Rope does tell you some upcoming assignments, but that's not a fail-safe to know every single piece of work that they might be being expected to do for homework. Jump Rope's going to be holding a lot of the more substantial formative assessments, but it's not going to hold every single small assessment. We do hope that you're checking online and keeping a pulse on whether your students turning in assignments regularly or whether they're missing a lot of assignments. Our policy on late work, because all our homework assignments are meant to allow students to engage more fully with the material we're presenting in the next class, we don't allow them to do late, small homework assignments. If they miss it, they've kind of missed that chance for practice. There will be future chances to practice that particular skill. But for instance, when I assign a journal prompt for homework, and then we come into class the next day to discuss that prompt, if they do it a day later, they've lost that opportunity to really be part of that discussion and to be a contributing member of that discussion. So there's really not much point in doing late homework. In terms of significant major assignments, we do have a formal late work policy with that, where we do accept that, and we have that laid out in more detail in the handbook and other material on all of the syllabi and the welcome letter that you got. Our late work policy is laid out there. And in terms of homework, it's assessed very separately. I want to be clear about that. It's not assessed as part of your content assessment in a course. So if you consistently don't turn in any assignments in my social studies class, it's not going to affect your mastery level of social studies content. What it will affect is your mastery of the work habit of turning in things in on time. So you're going to, on your, when you look at report cards, and I'll talk about this, you're going to see very clearly what your student knows in terms of their mastery of certain skills, what they know in terms of mastery of content, and what work habits look like for them. That way you have a clear sense of whether they're confused about math or whether they're just still struggling with actually remembering to open their math book at home and do the homework. If that makes sense. Does anyone have any questions on our homework policies? I know that's a lot.
I just have a quick question about the work habit grade. So, Sharon came home and said something like, we didn't get a grade, which is fine, but do they have feedback on the work habit piece every day?
On the work habit piece, so what I'm doing in my classes, they all have the HEART rubric, and that's in your welcome letter as well, and it's on our syllabi. And so in my classes, what I do is I check homework completion every day in terms of have they made a full attempt at completing the homework, and that I mark down. And then at the end of the week, I'm going to enter that into an assessment for responsibility and timeliness on the HEART rubric, and that does show up on Jump Rope. So you'll be able to check in at each week, or some classes will be doing it every other week, I believe. But you'll be able to see, oh, in terms of their work habits this week, they met expectations for timeliness of assignments. Oh, well, this week they were just beginning meeting the expectations of how much work was done. So does that help?
So we look at Jump Rope for that. There's not a little note on the homework that you write.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. So that feedback will come through Jump Rope.
And I think it'll also depend on the assignment, right? So for example, math, we don't collect, in my math class, we don't collect homework every day. What we're doing is just saying, this is your opportunity to practice what we were learning yesterday, and we're going to say, using the honor code, like, did you do it or not? And then you're going to say, yes, I did, or no, I didn't, or I did 75%. And we're, in that moment, all we're assessing is the task of, well, if you want to use the gateway standard 5, whatever, these silly things, or you can say, like, basically, did you do homework, right? And then separately, when we take a chapter test, we'll be assessing the content knowledge of that, and obviously through questions in class, there's like informal awareness of, you still don't get this, right? But it's not going to be like, when we collect the homework, give it a check at the top, ooh, nice job, that was really laid out well, and go back. It's just saying, it's your opportunity for you to do your practice. But I think depending on like, bigger sense of current events,
Yeah.
there's definitely written feedback on the fact.
Yeah.
And that's homework, but it's weekly homework, right, versus daily.
Yeah, we're talking much, like the smaller, like, you know, do these 2 questions for homework, or write this journal prompt to come into class to discuss. And I know it's really important to think, like, this exact same skills that are being practiced on the homework, or the exact content, is going to show up on an assessment that they receive a rubric for, that they receive feedback on. So the homework that I gave for the night before, that exact skill is going to be coming up on a rubric assignment later next week. So they'll be getting that feedback along the way. Were there any other homework questions? So community service, just as for all of you as adults, community service is a vital part of being part of this community for kids. It's a great chance for them to learn about themselves. So we often think of like community service as giving to others, which definitely is, but it's also super valuable for these young people to get to try out different ways of working in the world, to try out different skills, to practice different ways of relating to people. It's really amazing to watch these kiddos when they go to the elementary and like come back and they were like, oh my gosh, it was so hard to be patient with this child because they kept doing this really annoying thing, and so just for them to gain some of that perspective. So we do ask that they do 20 hours of community service a year while they're in middle school, so 40 hours total. That happens through your family figuring out opportunities that they are interested in. Your advisor is a great place if you are really struggling, like I have no idea what opportunities are out there or how to figure out how to get them there. We can help you, come up with ideas. There are ideas in the newsletter. After a student does their community service hours, they need to log them to get credit for it. It's always the end of the year. Kids are like, I've done all my community service. And we're looking at the report saying it says you have 1 hour. There's an online submission form. They have to do a written reflection that encourages them to think about what they learned about themselves by doing this. What did they learn about what kind of work they like? What did they learn about themselves as a worker? There's also paper copies of the log. They're in Pam's room, and all of the hours need to be completed by June 1st to count toward the requirement for that year. And hours done over the summer can count toward the year. So if your student was working as a CIT for a summer camp this summer, or did like volunteer work over the summer for a neighbor, they can count those hours. They just need to fill out the logs and submit them. Any questions on community service?
Look at Stratford, talk to John, we'll get the fire trucks washed, right?
Always our dress code here, we try to make sure that our dress code allows for as much freedom of expression while making sure that students are dressed in a way that allows them to learn and participate fully in all of our parts of our day. So clothing needs to allow a full range of motion. That way kids are not sitting in class like unable to move in their seat, or when they're playing games, like, not able to run because their like flip-flops are falling off. In terms of our basics, we'd like to ask that students keep from about chest level to about mid-thigh level covered. Just keep your midsection covered, no bellies, backs, butts, groin, chest. So just as long as that area is covered, we're pretty okay. We definitely don't worry about measuring the length of anyone's shorts or anything like that. We also ask that there's no promotion of any sort of drugs or alcohol, tobacco, or violence or hatred on anything that they're wearing. If for some reason a student is in violation of the dress code, don't make a big deal of it. We're not gonna send them home. The teacher will just pull them aside, check in, help them understand why what they're wearing doesn't meet the dress code. We can have alternative clothing here that we can offer them, or they have lockers, and it's always a really good idea for them to just keep a spare like t-shirt or a sweatshirt or something in their locker. That way, you know, and more often than not, it's like, I spilled this thing all over me at lunch, and that's why it's needed, but it's a nice idea to have. And they always need to make sure they have a pair of shoes that they can run around in. In ESP, we'll often be outside, regardless of, like, I mean, if it's horrible weather, we're not going to be out there. But, you know, if it's a chilly day, we're still going to go outside and play our games or do archery. So please make sure they have clothing that's weather appropriate for that class and shoes that they can run around in outside. And when it's snowing, it's often a good idea to have some shoes around. Any dress code questions, concerns? Technology. First one's really easy for all of us, but harder for the kids. No gaming at school ever, because it eats up our bandwidth. It's also like not how we want students to be connecting. We'd like them to connect as humans in person. So they should not be playing any sort of online games. They can use the internet after school and homework support on our computers. Every student has a TSA email, and by the end of today, pretty much everyone should have logged in my class, even if you're new, so they have that TSA email. They can bring their own laptops if they want, but we have school Chromebooks that they're able to use. We can't monitor after school before homework support starts. So there's like that 20-minute window where like we ask them to still follow the rules, but if they have their own personal laptop, that makes it more challenging. Yeah. And during the school day and homework support, computers are only being used for schoolwork. So at lunch, if a student wants to use a computer to keep, like, they know they have a busy night and want to get their homework done, that's fine. But if they want to go show their friend the funny video from YouTube over lunch, then they cannot do that. Should not be doing. Compatibility of software, we have Chromebooks here, which means that it's all web-based, and so those Chromebooks don't have memory in them. So it's always really helpful to use things like Google Docs or saving photos to Google Drive or things like that that are compatible, because if they come in with like a document on a USB, which seems less and less common these days, but then we have to put on our computers and then digitize it and like email it to them. So just if they're thinking about how to save something and they have the ability to just put it onto a Google Doc or Drive, that's the easiest way for them to be able to access it here than on their Chromebook. And all technology questions, send to him. This morning, we just handed him a bunch of computers and we're like, these aren't working, fix them. So, electronic devices, phones, and any other handheld device are not allowed during the school day. The expectation is that once they come in, they put it away in their locker and it doesn't come out until the school day has ended. If they need to make a phone call, we have these lovely phones in each of our rooms that really the students use way more than we do. If for some reason there's ever like the only way for me to communicate with my parents is through text, they just need to ask one of us first so we can like observe, oh yeah, they got it out, they texted a parent, their question, they put it. But ideally they're communicating through our phone systems. If a student's having trouble detaching from their phone, as many of us do, the first time we see it, we'll just be like, hey, school day started, put your phone away, please. If they actually have it past 8:15 when the school day started, and we'll give them a warning, and if it doesn't go away, we'll put it in a phone box, which is that fun box in the hallway, which is basically just saying, like, you're having trouble not taking this out of your locker. So we're going to put it in a place where that temptation is removed, so you can actually focus on learning. The second time, if the phone is becoming an issue, then we'll have them put it in the phone box for a week, and we'll email to you to say, hey, this is kind of becoming an issue. Let's maybe have this conversation with them at home about how the phone is being used. And then the third offense, it'll be in the phone box again, and then that's when we're going to ask you to come in and, like, you, your student, us, we'll have a conversation about, like, what is it about using your phone that's really challenging, and how can we help support making this an environment where there's not so much struggle around the phone being separated from you for progress. So this kind of comes back to what we were talking about, homework, assignments like this. We're using the platform Jump Rope. Both your student and you have access to it at this fun hyperlink. Take it on. There will be a username and password coming out to you in the next few weeks. We're still populating that platform. That's going to allow you to keep an eye on like day-to-day stuff like homework completion. And then it's also going to allow you to communicate with your student and have those informed conversations of like, hey, I see that you have this really large assessment coming up. I haven't seen you do homework at all this week. It's that. And so that'll be a way to stay in touch with what's going on. Some major assignments will be posted there, and then like homework completion will be posted there, but not every single little assignment, like here's your journal prompt for tonight, that may not be put there. So they should be writing down the homework in class. Trimester progress reports come out, one around Thanksgiving, one late March, and one at the end of the year, and that will give you a big picture of the skills that your student is working on and where they are in their mastery of those skills. And we have 2 conferences in a year, Thanksgiving and April vacation. That conference needs to involve not just you and the teacher, or sorry, you and the advisor, but also the student is part of that conversation. And that's a really great place to hear from them how they feel they're doing in their classes and what's going on for them where they're struggling and what's allowing them where they're to succeed where they're succeeding. So those conferences are actually a really nice time to have that conversation and connect. Any questions on?
One thing I do want to clarify, and this is a change in terminology if you've been to this presentation before with former students, is that it says trimester progress report, not trimester report card. And the reason behind that is because some of the standards that students are being assessed on are year-long standards. And so to push a reset button on like after Thanksgiving and say, oh, this person is starting fresh on the same standard they were working on before, doesn't make a lot of sense. So there's like a snapshot that will occur at Thanksgiving and around the end of March, but there is essentially some of those standards are, and Claire will get into this more when she talks about proficiencies and gateway standards and all that. Some of those are standards that are year-long things we're working on, and so we want to have that be assessed continually throughout the entire year. All right? Yep.
Ellen, many of us are used to 15-minute long conferences at previous schools. Can you talk about conferences here?
Yes, that's a great question. I'll point out. So our conferences are generally like 45 minutes to an hour long, and that's a time where we'll talk, yes, about how your students doing academically, but also we get into how are things feeling socially here? Like who are you connecting with? What social issues are coming up for you here? How are you doing with volunteer work? So we really kind of have a very full conference. And so that's also a time and place for you to bring in any of your concerns with social stuff you see going on or like workload. So it's a pretty substantial conference to come into. And that's why we put both those days to really carving out the time to have those longer conferences with you. Anything else? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Claire.
So as TSA is shifting to proficiency or standards-based assessments, I'm curious because this is happening all across Vermont. So for parents that are coming from different schools, I wonder if you've heard about proficiency or standards-based grading. Is that familiar to some of our students here? Okay, yeah. Great. So we started this shift last year. A new element to it is these 7 gateway standards, and these we sort of, as a community, we decided that these were really the top level skills that we felt were really important for students in order to be successful in school and really beyond school. And so in order to provide a real sense of continuity in our education at TSA, starting at the middle school and all the way through the high school, the students are going to come back to these standards in all different types of classes and have all different types of opportunities to demonstrate proficiency in each of these standards. So acquiring information critically, thinking critically and using evidence to construct arguments, demonstrating perseverance in problem solving, communicating effectively, taking responsibility for learning and growth, and committing to community and responsible citizenship. And the last, the seventh, practicing social, emotional, and physical well-being. And so each of these standards is broken down into indicators that are more specific elements of what it takes to master a fairly comprehensive skill like this. And so what the students are really being assessed on are those sort of indicator levels, sort of a sub-bullet point, acquiring information critically. Well, that involves reading critically. And so the student would really be being assessed on reading critically, or listening, or contributing to discussions, those kinds of sub-elements for these 7 standards. Any questions about these? Sometimes we're calling them the big 7. Yeah, so is it October 6th? October 9th is an opportunity to, at the high school, but it's relevant for middle and high school parents to learn a little bit more about proficiency or standards, standards-based assessments. And I'm going to capture just some of the highlights here. But if you're feeling a little confused, certainly reach out to one of us or the advisor, and then that night is a great resource to take a deeper dive into what this means. So proficiency in standards-based grading, again, it's happening in schools all across Vermont, and it's not really anything that's new in the educational scene, and the philosophy behind it is really consistent with what we've been doing at TSA. The things that we're doing differently, or sort of re-emphasizing or shifting, I wanted to sort of try to capture for you here. So since we're moving away from an A through F or 0 through 100 grading system, it's really sort of like, all right, how'd you do on this assignment? Okay. 85, moving on. How'd you do on this assignment? 75, okay, moving on. We're really trying to, again, look at this education from the moment the student comes in and through they leave, and have that really sort of holistic view, and have a curriculum that's really building on itself in a really deliberate way. So hence those 7 standards. So proficiency is about mastering skills and content. So academic skills such as communicating effectively through written work, and then also academic content like understanding ecosystem dynamics in science. And so what we're doing this year more than ever is really being clear and trying to be really consistent about what standard is this activity or this assessment, what standard is this tied to? Basically in student terms, like when they're like, what's the point of this? We're like, oh, I'm so glad you asked. We have these standards, and let me tell you all about it. So really, it's trying to do a much better job of answering that question for the students of like, what's the point of this? And this is really a core value at TSA, but one that we're emphasizing more and more than ever is really this emphasis on continual feedback and on that sense of building progress. Not just through middle school, but again, through high school. So really shifting again, that mindset to put it in student speak from like, what grade did I get, to how am I progressing on this skill? What have I accomplished so far? And what can I do to improve my knowledge of this content or my mastery of this skill? And this also means that multiple opportunities are going to be afforded the student in order to master a piece of content in science, or especially to master one of those big 7 skills. They're going to be having opportunities in different classes all through their years here. This is something that, revisions is something that we teach at the middle school, and again, it's something that we've already been doing, but is really ever more at home in this sort of somewhat newer way for us to think about education, is really teaching our students how to revise work, and the importance of doing so, and how worthwhile it is to cycle through that learning and to take a look at your mistakes and learn from those mistakes.
And again, something that TSA I think already does really well is this flexibility, and we're really challenging ourselves to do even better at it through proficiency and standards-based grading, is to really ask ourselves, well, if a student is already demonstrating mastery on this thing, then we can challenge them in a different way or find a different avenue for them to express themselves. And likewise, if they need support, figure out what are the right angles for the student to demonstrate mastery on this skill or content, rather than saying, you didn't do well on that test. That's a bummer. That would never happen. So having that flexibility is really becoming really at the forefront of our efforts. Are there questions I can answer about? Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about revisions.
So, in the process of revisions and editing and self-editing and checking their work, is there an opportunity to improve their performance? Or I know we're probably not meant to call them grades anymore. I'm not sure what to call them, but is the part of the entire process in my mind of revising, it's such an important life skill for, particularly as they go through their headed to college or whatever. Being able to edit is really, really important to edit for better, not only better grammar and things like that, but for better content, for better thinking, deeper thinking. And so my question is really, how will they be rewarded for revising? Revising is a painful process, and a lot of times, learning it, you want it to be something that we are eager to do, and not something that this is like, which it is, but it's also very rewarding if you're rewarded.
Absolutely, yeah. So when it comes to revisions, for much smaller assignments, we might not be able to offer the same sort of level of feedback, but I take it that we're talking about longer essays, So when we're talking about those bigger assignments, often sort of the cycle of how things work, and I'll make sure that I turn it over to Fallon and Marcy to make sure I did this justice, but they're getting a lot of one-on-one feedback in class. So we've shifted, where I mean, certainly for me, when I was a student, I did all the writing at home. We're having the students do most of the writing in class, and so that they're getting continuous one-on-one, over-the-shoulder feedback while they're working in class. And so there's that sort of informal feedback process. And then from there, Marcy and Fallon have worked hard to sort of have a consistent approach to sort of a first draft and a final draft, so I'll leave that to them to make sure I don't fumble that.
Yeah, so in terms of, like, say, your typical essay, there's multiple stages that are scaffolded throughout. And so, for instance, there's an outlining stage, and I know I actually collect and give an assessment on and feedback on outlining, and then they get that back. And there's, as Claire's saying, days and days of in-class work where we're giving feedback. I know I often have kids, if either calling me over with specific questions or because of the joy of Google Docs, they can ask the questions on the document. Does this quote make sense? Did I cite this correctly? And so we can also be giving feedback through that.
That was going to be my next question, is there a usage of like the actual revisions technology inside the document?
Yeah, so we do that, and even things like track changes is amazing on Google Docs, because I can sit there with a kid. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself, but so we'll do the outlining stage. We're getting feedback there. We're doing a lot of in-class work, and then when they turn in their rough draft, and we're very clear with students about this, their rough draft is going to be assessed as, this is how far I have come independently with my writing skills right now, with my abilities right now. And those certain skills of writing, of the ability to use evidence to support an idea, will be assessed on what we would call their rough draft. Then, after they get that assessment back, they are working on making revisions for what we'll call a final draft. But that process of revising is assessed as a separate skill. The skill of revision in the Big 7 standards is its own skill. And so they have the skill of being able to write effectively, communicate effectively through writing. And then they have the skill of revision. And so in terms of rewarding revision, it's actually like, it's its own grade and its own graduation standard. So because we've thought about this, like, how do you get a kid to not just say like, that was good enough on my rough draft. And now saying, yeah, that was the assessment that you got on your rough draft for your writing abilities. And now we're about to assess your revision abilities. And so if you make no changes, which we can see because we have Google Docs, and we can look at your criteria sheets, then in terms of your skills for revision, you're going to just be beginning at that. Whereas we have kids who do phenomenal revision work, and they have definitely mastered the skill of revision, but we need to be really clear that without the feedback from us, they're not yet able to write effectively for an audience on their first, like, they're independent attempts. So now we want to communicate that clearly. How are you doing with your writing abilities? How are you doing with your revision? Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. Okay. And please, if you or your student is confused about that, because I know a lot of kids are coming from this mindset of rough draft, just turn in the first thing and we really make sure that they know that they shouldn't be doing that, but I know that's sometimes a mind shift for students.
I have one more question about the, and it relates to the technology policy this year. So, with some students only know on computers and some students working on the Chromebooks, our students, do they know how to type? I mean, and that's part of really, like, you know, when I think about working in revisions and the time it takes and things like that, is that an area of concern?
Yeah, so I'll be tackling that in my study all class, which is really a grab bag of study skills and like the broadest application of that term, so that we'll be doing things like working on good typing form. Because yeah, I completely agree. If you can be a fast typer, then your thoughts can flow a lot more easily. So we will be doing some typing skills in study all class.
I would also say, Candace, that we find often that people are arriving with pretty amazing typing skills compared to students 10 years ago arriving in 7th grade. And I think part of that's just because, whether you like it or not, they're spending so much of their time academically, socially, playfully, whatever, using
Does it matter that they only type with their thumbs?
that does matter.
Right.
We don't want that.
Right.
So I think that's why we're going to work with
It takes
the...
45 minutes.
It
Right.
does. Yeah.
Well, that's when you have to teach them, push this button and then talk into the thing. Right?
No, that works.
I'll be really brief with this one, because I know that Andrew has talked to a lot of parents one-on-one about this. So since 7th and 8th graders are mixed in the same classroom, that means our curriculum cycles on a 2-year basis. So we're on year B, and so the interdisciplinary themes across science and social studies and language arts, which we call the block classes, because they happen one right after another in a block. Those themes this year, the first is living in Vermont, and the second is beliefs. And then the third is a little split, because I do science fair, and then Marcy and Fallon have their own sort of mini units. And then year A, the first theme is human rights, and the second is not energy, but food and hunger. Food and hunger, and then energy is the third. So yeah, again, more information online, more information in the packets, but any questions about big picture curriculum topics?
And we just thought that this year you might benefit from that front page in the handout, which was the just the daily schedule. And you could, it might be a good like sort of fridge thing of like what is happening at school in a given moment. So if that's useful, let us know. And if you want the whole weekly schedule, we can do that too. But, yeah. All right, so we're bringing it home for the home stretch here. I'm going to try to bang out just some other little like diddly things. We're going to try to keep to our 8 o'clock deadline, but please do feel like if you have to go, that's fine. And also, if you want to stay and ask individual questions or group questions afterwards, feel free to do that as well. One thing, just standardized testing. Some people love standardized testing, some people hate standardized testing, some people don't really care about standardized testing. We do standardized testing. We do the SBAC testing in the spring. It happens in May or June, and it's for language arts and for math. And then there's also in the 8th grade a science test, which is in the same portal online. They're all online adaptive tests, and students can move Chromebooks, and then they have the results of that, which for returning students, we do have those results, which I think got mailed home to you, but if they didn't, you should reach out to us, and they'll also be shared with you at your conference in November with the advisor. There is an option for you to opt out if you're, first of all, if you're a privately funded student, you can choose to opt out, that's your prerogative. And if you're a publicly funded student, you can, it's a little more rigmarole, but you can also choose to opt out, but we would ask that you don't, not because we think standardized testing is wonderful, but because we think it's a really good skill also for students to practice. Being, thinking about if you're a teacher, you're going to take the practice exam, which is an online adaptive test. If you're taking the SATs, same thing, right? If you're taking the GREs to get into graduate school, or the MCATs, or the LSATs, or whatever, at some point in your life, to be successful, you may have to take standardized tests. And if the first time you do it is the SATs, that might not be so great for your score, which again, is only one measure of success, but just a thing to be aware of. So we would say that it also is really useful with such a small community to be able to have everyone's data in that set to be able to get some sort of meaningful results. So they publish our results, and if it's like, oh, we had 16 students, and they're like, 17% of them, it's like one kid. Like, that's not exactly math, but it makes it a little trickier. It's far better when we get everyone's picture, and we can really convey that. So talk to me afterwards, though, if you have questions, complaints, compliments, things you care about related to standards testing. Related to that, we also have the STAR 360 diagnostic tool, which is kind of like an in-house standardized test. It takes about 30 minutes. We do it again, 30 minutes in math, 30 minutes in reading, and it gives us just in-house data on how they're progressing against grade level expectations. And this is, we do it 3 times a year, September, sometime in winterish, and then April, just to sort of track their progress over time. It's especially useful for students who are maybe on the cusp of either needing special education or needing assessments within special education, but it's also really useful for us to know, wow, this student is performing according to the STAR 360 in the 95th percentile, and yet half the time they don't turn in their literary circle assignments to Marcy. We need to figure something out, that what's going on, that they're a very clearly talented reader who isn't reading, or maybe we think, oh, we're one, anyway, it's just a useful diagnostic tool, right? And it's not, doesn't get published online or publicly traded anywhere or any of those other things. It's just in-house data. Okay? This one's really straightforward. So useful. So Pam, those of you who know Pam Ward, who used to run middle school and now is one of our support people, she was very proud of herself when way back in the day she used PowerPoint to invent this slide. It's a good slide. We hold on to it. So this is the road coming towards the elementary school. This is the building, right? You may or may not have noticed. The idea is you pull in over here and you pull around, right? That way, if you go this way, no good. All right? So this is a useful tool.
Wait, I have an addition. And please don't stop drop your kid off here and then go around, because what happens is you taking even just 30 seconds to drop off your kid, that line of cars backs up into the road. And I know that can be confusing sometimes. You're like, but I did go around the circle. But
right.
Drag your kid with you to the circle.
Drop here. That would be an added part of the slide in case it's confusing. All right. For those of you who are not from Sharon, we have transportation now from these towns here through a mixture of public busing through Stagecoach and private busing through us, which is through STA, which is a school bus company. And rather than taking everyone's time with talking about buses, I'd love to just, if you have questions about the buses, you should come and find us. If you live in any of these towns or on the way to any or from any of these towns, we can definitely help you figure it out. Unfortunately, our Stratford families, there's not yet a bus, but we'll get there at some point probably. And for those, right, just I'll just drive the bus every day. And then there's also the other pieces in Sharon. Of course, you can ride if your house is on the Sharon Elementary School bus route. You can ride the Sharon Elementary School bus, but they won't expand the route to accommodate it. So that's another option there. So if you have questions for people on busing, talk to us. If you bear with us and we'll move on. Circus, one of all of our favorite times, I think, every year is our Circus Immersion program. It happens in late March, and you have an opportunity to see your kid perform in front of hundreds of people, as well as your faculty and staff perform wacky feats in front of those hundreds of people. This year, the dates are for the evening of the 29th and the late afternoon of Saturday the 30th. You'll notice here, put on your calendar now. So please, please, please make sure. We always seem to have someone who says, oh, we didn't know there was a Saturday show too, and we booked a weekend trip to Uruguay or something, and you're like, okay, well, you won't be in the show then. So but we'd really very much like for you to be there for both those performances, and those are the two dates, so just if you could get them in your calendar, that'd be useful. It's also really good to know that the 2 weeks before that are not typical, obviously. We have a 2-week artist in residence program with Troy Wonderly, who that really is his name, and he is a circus performing guru who comes from Wonderly's Big Top Adventures. In the summertime, he serves as the artistic director of Circus Smirkus, and he has previously been crowning director for Ringling Brothers, so he's a real deal circus guy. Academics, we'll have a couple of days of academics in those 2 weeks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of the first week, we'll have some amount of academics. After that, all academics cease, and we are doing non-stop circus from morning till night. And within that, it's important to know, thinking back to that idea of those big 7 proficiency standards, that even though academics in the form of math class or social studies cease to exist, those big 7 are going to be hit on lots of other times in lots of other ways, and there will be assessments and rubrics for them to be thinking about related to what it means to persevere or to be accountable or to, you name it, in those big 7 pieces, they're going to come up within the context of the circus performance as well. So other opportunities for those gateway standards. And we will be asking for some volunteer help during circus, for cleaning up afterwards, for coming in to paint sets, for monitoring still walkers. It's always a thing that some people come and do for a little bit. But we also just love for you all to come and celebrate with us and appreciate the tremendous work that all of your students put into our circus every year. So it's a really fun event, and if you haven't been yet, I do look forward to joining us in March on those dates. So, and then the other piece, just to know, we have graduation in June. So another date that's worth putting in your calendar is Thursday, June 13th. This is a change. In the past, it's been on a Friday. We've moved up things, so the high school graduation is no longer on Sunday. It's going to be on Saturday, and the middle school graduation will be on Thursday and not a Friday. So it's this day, 6:30. And put on your calendar now. It's a chance for everyone. We'll have a middle school chorus for about 8 weeks beforehand, where they will practice 2 hours a week with Nils Fredlund, who's the artistic director for Rebels North. He comes and does chorus, singing, performing, things, songs, all sorts of stuff leading up to it, ukulele pieces, and they will perform first, and then it's a chance for 8th graders to reflect on their experience and their growth and how they've changed over these 2 years in middle school. And it's also an opportunity for closure for both 7th and 8th graders on this community that we've been building together for an entire year. So it's important to know that this is a 7th grade event and 8th grade event. We expect all students to be there at graduation, so make sure it's on your calendar for that evening, Thursday the 14th at 6:30 in June. All right? Any questions about that? All right. So there we are, questions. So at this point, if you have whole group questions, we can answer those in the whole group, or if you have individual questions, we can meet with you individually. We're 3 minutes over, but we really appreciate your patience, and hopefully you gained a lot of information. Are there any sort of big whole group questions people want to ask about any of the stuff we covered? All right. Cool. Well, thanks so much. Somebody will. Yeah, they don't line up. They line up on the screen. It looks good. On the actual screen. We have children who do that for you. What else is new?
One day, you get the cookie test.
Someday, once they're ripped and torn and used up, once the high school's finished with them. Yes. Sandy takes it. Well, not on everything. Yeah, still work totally. Absolutely. Sandy takes a bus. And one day, she does it. She goes on the Rochester route. She does it so really well. She gets on way forward. It's a random stop. It's any stagecoach. The Randolph bus takes them. Gets here early. Like it's 7 minutes something. Right. There's no one here at 7 o'clock. So it's also as a professional. You can take it like if she writes something at 11, I prefer to take it southbound bus on but it's not ideal. Walking across There is also the option students, it's like
picked him out, and I'm like, it's no